Welcome to Qatar KickAround, the nightly wrap-up and discussion of the day's action in the 2022 World Cup. From the group stage to the final, our team is here, keeping you on top of the world's most watched sporting event. Brought to you by Westwood One Sports.
Howdy-ho, and welcome to Matchday 6 of Qatar KickAround, our nightly wrap-up show of the action at the World Cup of 2022. Down there, somewhere over there, in a place called Qatar. Hi, it's me, Peter, tagging along with World Cup nerd Andy Swift.
I like that.
And general football nerd Lars Sivertson.
Yes.
Gentlemen, welcome to Matchday 6.
Howdy. You surviving? We all surviving? You good, Lars?
I mean, do you want me to answer honestly to that question? Because we just had the chat before the show.
Yeah,
I'm a bit tired, guys. I don't know why. Today, a bit tired.
I think this is a good time for us to remind people who, especially those who probably are watching their first World Cup critically, that the World Cup is not, in fact, despite the hype, the sport's best example of the sport, if that makes sense. Best demonstration of the sport. What it is the best spectacle of the sport.
True. That's really well put.
Today,
and
with Kylian Mbappe showing off his athleticism, Messi saving Argentina from that dire game against Mexico is exactly the kind of content that we all just come to know and love and remember.
It's the emotions. It's playing for the flag.
Yes. Yes.
Also, it matters more than almost anything else as well.
Right.
So that's definitely true. And in that sense, I mean, we're already getting to the phase of the tournament which always comes, which is when the clever analytical heads start discussing, has it actually been good or not? Which I don't really know what the answer to that question is. But I can say that after a week of this, the tournament has delivered a lot of big moments that I'll remember for sure. So in that sense, I'm pretty happy so far.
Now, the scoring is down a little bit compared to at least the past two World Cups. It's at about 2.4 goals per game.
Okay.
Past two have been about 2.6.
It doesn't feel like it's been an overly defensive World
We've
Cup,
had
though.
5 0-0s.
Okay.
We're too shy of the record.
Really?
Right, yeah. So
It's mostly Mexico's fault, though, right?
Yeah, CONCACAF's fault, actually. They've had a few of those.
Yeah,
zeros,
CONCACAF isn't
zeros.
having a very good tournament. And of course, to Lars's point, we're going to get double the teams from CONCACAF.
Yeah.
The next.
Everybody's getting double the teams. Come on now.
I mean, if you're worried about not enough goals being scored, then I think having Aruba in the tournament is probably going to help.
Yeah, it's gonna,
Goal averages going up.
CONCACAF contributed Costa Rica. They helped. That helped the average
Kits
goal
and
score.
Neves, get them in there. The average goal score is very, very high. Goals
Okay,
go up.
before we get started, let's do everybody's favorite segment of Qatar KickAround. It is Andy's Professor Andy's World Cup Trivia, where we ask the question now and answer it later.
Okay, so today's is a very simple one, but it does relate to a couple teams we'll be talking about today. So the top three teams that have finished the most in the top three in World Cup history are Germany. They've done it 12 times, Brazil 9, Italy 7. Now I'm going to give you 4 teams, and you have to tell me which of those 4 teams have finished top 3 the most among the 4 teams, and which have finished top 3 the least among those 4 teams. Okay? The teams are A, Hungary, B, Sweden, C, England, and D, Poland. Which of those 4 teams has finished top 3 the most among themselves, and which one has finished top 3 the least among those 4 teams?
All right. No Googling, Lars, listener.
The teams again, Hungary, Sweden, England, Poland.
Okay. This sounds like a very stereotypically complicated Andy World Cup trivia question, but we will answer it before the end of the show. Let's start with the game everybody was excited about today. No, not France, Denmark. It is Argentina, Mexico. And I was thinking about this going into the game. If U.S. England is big brother, little brother psychology, am I wrong in saying that that's the same thing? If England is to the U.S., isn't that what Argentina is to Mexico? Maybe that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, a little bit, just because of the history. They've played quite a bit, not just in World Cups, but in other national tournaments. And Argentina always wins, and they always remind the people of Mexico that they always beat them.
The stadium was insane today.
It was the best
88,000
atmosphere,
people.
right?
Yeah.
Best atmosphere so far.
So loud.
And because both countries well represented at the World Cup. So,
Lars, you there?
Well, yeah, no, I'm just listening. I mean, I was just saying that for me, looking at this game, it was all about how the very real danger of Argentina going out. I think was a big
angst,
factor.
lots of angst, right?
Was just hanging over this, right? They were so nervous.
It was the sword of Damocles over the game.
You could really tell, and they reverted to sort of bad Argentina, which is like give it to Messi and see what happens. There was in the first half, there was such an obvious absence of movement when he, give it to Messi, and then no one makes any attacking runs or does anything. It's really, really, that's the worst kind of Argentina national team we saw, but I think it's something that happens when everyone's really nervous and frightened.
And I think in the first half, Mexico actually approached it well. I mean, they were always on Messi. I remember when Chile played Argentina twice in Copa America finals, and the key to beating them twice, they eliminated Messi. They quadruple teamed him. They just like dogpiled him, and then they told anybody else on that team, if anybody else beat us, then fine. And nobody else stepped up. Now, this is a different Argentina team. And also, Mexico got tired in the second half, and it just completely turned.
Yeah, Mexico did the opposite of Chile and just let Messi stand by himself 5 yards atop the D.
Yeah,
So.
in the second half.
It's not the thing to do, yeah. No, I think also going back even before that to the team selection, I think Lionel Scaloni was spooked because he made some changes. He made quite a few changes. And they were
a lot.
I think McAllister and Rodriguez in for Papu Gomez and Paredes are quite defensive subs. If you look at the subs, changes compared to the Saudi game. Those are more slightly more defensively diligent players, whereas Paredes is more of a ball player in midfield, whereas Rodriguez is a little bit more of a destroyer, and McAllister is a little bit more, has more running power maybe, whereas Papu Gomez is more creative. So that was definitely changes to the midfield that suggested to me that Scaloni was worried about this game, because obviously we can talk about how, and I have said this, how the Saudi match, the defeat to Saudi, was a little bit freakish. You concede 3 shots in the whole game and 2 of them go in. It normally doesn't happen. But the fact that they lost the game means that they suddenly absolutely need to win this. There's no margin for error whatsoever in this game against Mexico, who are not an easy opponent. And I think that really spooked them. And I think the nerves were really evident in everything that happened, from the lineup to the way they played. I do question the mentality of the group a little bit, just because they played okay against Saudi Arabia until they went behind. And then they started playing very badly, I thought. And again, in the first half, when everyone was really frazzled and worried, they didn't play very well at all. And in the end, they needed the great man to rescue them, and he duly delivered. I think the ray of light, the ray of sunshine for Argentina here was the goal by Enzo Fernandez, who came on in the second half. And
what a goal.
And has a bit of youth. You know, he's 21. He's sort of... there's a lot of old dudes on this team. I've spoken before about all the old dudes in Mexico, but there's also quite a few old dudes on Argentina. And there are quite a few players who've kind of been there before and failed before with Messi. Whereas Enzo Fernandez comes in, is playing brilliantly for Benfica in Europe, is really sort of coming man in football at the moment, and scores just a magnificent goal in the context of still a very fraught and stressed out situation. I think that shows a lot of courage from him, and just someone coming in as a fresh sort of breath of fresh air in that group of players is maybe very useful for them going forward.
I do think Argentina has a more, in terms of age, more balanced squad than Mexico, who I think has got age problems. And it was, by the way, Mexico also with a lot of changes going into this game from their first game. But I think Mexico's age really showed, because the second half had barely started, and you already saw the tired legs. And I feel like Martino waited a touch too long. In fact, I was typing a WhatsApp to you guys saying Mexico looks tired. Martino needs to make a change now. When Messi scored his goal, I was typing that one, then I just erased it. I mean, okay,
no, but
done.
I don't disagree with the observation.
Yeah.
I was probably still fascinated by Memo Ochoa's goalkeeper kit, which is clearly an homage to Peter Parker's homemade Spider-Man kit.
It looks like Spider-Man. I think because of the socks, right? Because it's basically Spain's kit.
I've never seen a goalkeeper wear a fire truck red jersey with royal blue shorts like that. But the chef's kiss was the lime green numbers and accent on the red jersey. That was my favorite. Sorry, Lars, you can stay with us. No more kit talk.
I'm just going to not respond to that. I don't hate kit talk. It's just the sartorial thing. It's just a side of life I don't really engage with that much, so I don't have anything to add. But I just think on the Argentina thing, they've still, 2 games in, the fact that they won this kind of rescues them a little bit with regards to
they can win the group, Lars.
Yeah, they'll probably be fine in terms of the group. But they haven't played a lot of good football. There were periods of the first half against Saudi when they were getting through that and in behind that high line, and they were unlucky to be caught offside. But yeah, in terms of them being a pre-tournament favorite, that's a tag they're really not living up to. And I'm wondering, and I can't quite agree with myself, how much of that is the mental strain they're under. That when they went behind against Saudi and couldn't respond to that, they then got into this game realizing, you know what, we could blow it here. Like, we could be out. And I think that really made everything really stressful and anxious and made it hard for them to perform. But you still have to say, after 2 games, after 2 times 90 minutes of football, this has not looked like a good team at any point yet, to be honest.
No, and the thing so far after 2 games, I feel like Mexico somewhat feels like the Mexican team that we watched through qualifying. Kind of inconsistent, not finding the right gear. But I'm also feeling like the Argentina team that we've seen after 2 games is not the same Argentina team that we saw go on a 35, 36 game undefeated streak.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if either one of you, Andy, you're the one that pays more attention to them more closely than I do. If you can tell me, is it Lars right? Is it just the pressure, or is it something else?
I think there's definite pressure. There's pressure to perform because you're wearing the jersey. There's lots of added pressure to perform because it's Messi's last hurrah, and they all feel this weight like, oh my God, this great player, we're going to be partly responsible for not giving him his freaking World Cup trophy. I think that it's adding a lot of pressure.
Totally agree.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it's just that they just look so different, and we've seen them play in the Copa America in the qualifiers, and even when they played Italy in that sort of made-up finalissima thing where they did both pantsed and trucked Italy, I thought.
Yeah, they played loose, right? They're having fun when nothing's on the line, kind of thing.
Beautiful flowing football that was both like a punch in the face and a humiliation at the same time for Italy. It was an amazing performance, and I think part of why so many people, including myself, had them as big favorites ahead of the tournament is that when they did turn up and played an Italy team, they just made them look silly.
Well, I always had this sense that the Maradona thing was over. Remember the last tournament when he was up in the stands and his eyes are rolling back in his head and he's like completely, overlording the entire thing in this very negative way? He's gone, and I just felt like maybe that was what needed to be let off the team.
That was more of an issue for Messi, personally.
Okay, but I still felt like he was this weird dark cloud over. And and again, this team largely, as Messi goes, the team goes.
Yeah. I think that pressure is gone for Messi, but now the pressure is just to get the trophy for Messi. And the one thing that I never brought up, but did you know that the defending Copa America champion has never won the World Cup?
Oh.
So every World Cup, whoever was the defending Copa America champion during World Cup never won it. So when Brazil won their World Cups, they were never defending champion. Argentina, Uruguay. So.
All right. Well, the group is a bit of a mess, Group C, because Poland beat Saudi Arabia today, and we got to see a grown man cry, which is always fun, because Robert Lewandowski finally scored his first World Cup goal. That was the sneaky, wily veteran striker move of just waiting for a defender to take a turn and steal the ball from him and slot it in the near post. And it was a great World Cup moment to see him finally celebrate that.
Get his goal.
And I do wonder if maybe Saudi Arabia burnt too much fuel in beating Argentina earlier this week.
I think they still look good, though, right, Lars? I think they look good for large portions of the game, and I don't think Poland's that good. So I guess, if you still lose 2-0 to Poland, it doesn't show that you're all too good yourself. But I thought Saudi Arabia looked decent for large parts of the game.
I thought they played well, but in the sense, the story of that game is in the identity of the goal scorers a little bit, because this doesn't work all the time, as we saw when Poland met Mexico and as we've seen with Poland before. But if you look at the two goal scorers in this game, it's Piotr Zielinski, who's the playmaker for the team that's top of the Serie A, one of the most exciting teams in Europe this season, Napoli. And it's Robert Lewandowski, who's the big centre forward for Barcelona and the top scorer in La Liga. Like, when you have individual talent like that, occasionally you will win games you shouldn't win, but
That's
just
a great
because
point.
you will just need fewer chances to get it done.
Great point, and it goes back to the Argentina game, that it took a great moment from Messi to finally kind of like, okay, jolt that team awake a little bit, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I have a question for Lars, because you're based in Europe and you hear this a little bit more, and maybe you have friends also in Poland. Is Lewandowski living the same thing that Messi's living compared to Maradona, what he's having to be to Lato? And that generation, Poland's great golden generation, and is he the greatest Polish player of all time? Well, he hadn't even scored in a World Cup, that kind of thing, or not really.
No, he is huge. He's a massive star for them, and there's more frustration, as I understand it, that they don't have a team capable of getting the best out of him, because they see him. They see him play for Barcelona, as they saw him play for Bayern and for Dortmund before that, and they see that he's this extraordinary penalty box predator. But the reality of when he plays for Poland, there's never a lack of effort. Lewandowski.
But do they put him in a pedestal higher than Lato, or is Lato still the all-timer?
That I couldn't tell you. I think that would be I would suspect that would be a generational thing. I think for the youngsters probably that'll Leva will be the greatest. But there's more a frustration that that they're not able to provide a platform for him to do the things that he can do.
Yeah.
So with Argentina playing Poland and Mexico facing Saudi Arabia in the final set of games for Group C, this thing's wide open.
It is.
And,
But with certain teams having an advantage over the others, clearly.
For sure. Yeah. And we're also in a weird situation where Mexico may not get out of their group for the first time since 1978, which seems improbable.
They were fed up with only playing 4 games.
Yes. Hey, real quick about Saudi Arabia. Do you remember the defender for Saudi Arabia that got absolutely run over by their goalkeeper in the first game?
Yes.
Yasser Al-Sharini. He not only has facial and jaw fractures, he had to undergo surgery for a pancreatic injury. He injured his pancreas
during
that collision
with his own keeper. Right?
Yes, and so he had pancreatic trauma and had to have surgery to repair the trauma to his pancreas. I've never heard of that before. That was one of the worst collisions I've ever seen.
The keeper felt really bad. Did you see before the game, they had a team picture. The keeper put the guy's jersey that he hurt over his own face.
He was devastated.
So tomorrow, the Mexico Saudi Arabia game. The key there, like it is with the U.S., it's figuring out a way to score. Right? Mexico hasn't scored.
Yeah.
By the way, can I bring this up now?
Yes, this is Andy's bonus trivia question.
Oh yeah, no. Tim Weah's claim to fame so far in this tournament. He's the only CONCACAF player to score a goal after 6 games. CONCACAF has yet to win a game, 3 ties, 3 losses, only 1 goal scored. Meanwhile, they play an Asian team. Asia's doing really well, comparatively speaking to relatively speaking to how they always do in World Cups. It is a tournament being played in Asia. They've won 4 matches. Really, the one Asian team that hasn't done well, ironically, is Qatar. But other than that, they have a winning record in this tournament so far. Asian teams do. CONCACAF is just having a miserable turn. Now, we're still not even halfway through, right, the group stage, but it's not looking great for CONCACAF teams so far.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there's a scenario where Saudi Arabia wins the group. They could beat Mexico, and Argentina and Poland could tie.
Yeah, and that eliminates
Argentina. Yeah, Argentina has to win.
Right.
And hope that Saudi Arabia...
Argentina just has to win and they're through.
Well, but they're probably also worried about,
getting France.
Right,
yeah. Sure, of course. But at this point, Argentina now, they just win and whatever.
Yes.
You can't speculate. Mexico has to win. Now, Mexico has to win if Mexico wins by 2 or 3, or they're forced to win by 2 or 3 to even have a chance. So it's complicated for them.
Lars is watching us like animals in a zoo talk about permutations.
Well, no, I'm just, it's an intriguing slight cultural difference because I've noticed you guys definitely put more emphasis on the permutations than we tend to do over here. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. It's just a different thing. So I'm kind of intrigued by it.
I feel like I'm being judged.
No, it's much more here where we
it's
sort of
just also fun to know.
We look forward to the games and discuss who we think will win and lose, and then we sort of work it out underway what it actually means.
But it's kind of fun because they're going to play at the same time to know, kind of.
And there's always this panic, like we've all been on a live broadcast when something's happened and you're not actually entirely sure what it means, and you have to look it up very fast.
Okay, that's where it comes into play.
Hey, the other thing I wanted to talk about real quickly to end this segment was I was very upset with the VAR decision on the Saudi Arabia penalty kick that was awarded. I thought it was great that Szczesny saved it because that drives me nuts. That's the whole slow motion thing that I hate. But Lars, you brought up a really good point about this World Cup and penalty kicks.
Yeah, there are many of them. So many. There's been a general increase, right? So in 2010, there were 15 penalties in 64 games. 2014, 13 penalties in 64 games. Jumped to Russia, 2018. 29 penalties suddenly. So doubling compared to the norm before in the full tournament. And then so far this time around, we've got 10 penalties now in 24 games. So in terms of average, we're on track for the same sort of number of penalties as Russia. Now, the first thing everyone listening to this will think, that's got to be VAR, right? And some of it is. In 2018, the year there was a huge increase in penalties. That was the first year of VAR. But only 8 penalties were given in that tournament after VAR review, after not being picked up by the referee. So it accounts for about half of the sudden increase, but not all of it. Mm-hmm. So there has been a general increase in penalties as well. And we can discuss the reasons. The new handball law, I think, has an effect here. It's stricter than it used to be. But I also just think attackers are getting cleverer with this. I think people are realizing more and more how important penalties are. And I think forwards are getting very, very good and conscious at finding legs to run into, basically, in the area.
So, just real quick, because this is a low-scoring tournament, I think, Lars, you made the point, or maybe Peter, you made the point that you thought it was because this tournament was going to be low-scoring because teams didn't have as much time to prepare. Is that why it might be more low-scoring?
I think I'm wondering if all the oddities of this tournament aren't related to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Could be, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll really know until afterwards,
And just briefly, the Saudi penalty, experienced P1s, KickAround listeners will know. They'll have heard me say this before. But I want to make the point again. I think that's just such a classic case of the laws of the game being a little bit flawed in the sense that any foul in the box has to be a penalty kick. It's just overpowered, as the young people on the computers with the computer games say. The penalties are OP. It isn't rational that any foul, however marginal, in the box has to be awarded with an 80% chance of a goal to the other team. There are just so many situations where that doesn't make sense. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. And in the past, I think referees understood this, and they would just kind of ignore quite a lot of fouls in the box because they would look at a foul and think, that's a foul, but I'm not giving the team a goal for it, and they would let it go. But that, of course, is where VAR comes into play, and it's really hard to just ignore a foul when it's on the screen right in front of you.
That's the problem with the tool. You introduce the technology for rules that were written 100 years ago without technology, and the two don't mix together. And so while if everybody insists on including the technology, the laws have to be rewritten so that the punishments fit the crimes.
I completely agree, but I would also humbly suggest that if the rules, if they rest on the idea that they don't work if the referee can see everything, we need the referee to sort of miss things and be a little bit inconsistent for the rules to make sense, then I think the rules are probably bad to begin with.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll talk about Kylian Mbappe's big day next.
Okay.
Stand by.
Yeah.
This is part 2 of match day 6 of Qatar KickAround. Now we move into Group D, action in Group D, which featured a significant day by one Kylian Mbappe. And I'm going to start off by creating a super corny sports cliche question for you two. If you were the manager of a team and you had to pick one player to start a team with, and you had to choose between these two, who would you choose, Kylian Mbappe or Erling Haaland? I will go with Andy first, since one of the two is not his former neighbor.
That's a bit strong, but yeah.
You know what I mean.
That's a great question. And I would say, well, it depends who you have around you, but you're saying if you're picking first, you start your franchise with this guy.
That's right.
Make him your franchise player.
Who's your miracle?
Who's my franchise player?
If you knew anything about Jerry Jones, Lars, you'd find that really funny, but that's okay.
I think about long-term health, and man, both have been healthy. And who's harder to defend? Both are terrifically difficult to defend.
We've stumped Andy. Lars, I will turn
I'd
to you.
go with Haaland.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, if I was Hey, say if I start the world's best funded MLS franchise and I can pick anyone, I would probably go with Haaland in that context. And my reasoning would be Kylian Mbappe is amazing, but you do hear some stories out of Paris and out of France about where his ego is at these days and what kind of character he is to deal with. And I think if I'm building a club from scratch, I'd probably want the boy wonder from Norway, because he is surprisingly very low maintenance still. Fingers crossed.
Such a. I'm sorry. Yep.
No,
what
I would say, because we're leading into an Mbappe chat here, I do think on the pitch, if we ignore all the stuff I just referenced and just think you're playing a game tomorrow, your life depends on it, who do you want in the team? I would actually, even as much as I admire Erling Haaland, I might lean towards Mbappe, because I think he's the kind of player you can put into any team and he'll be amazing. He's less dependent on having good players around him, because Haaland does need service. Haaland needs ball into the box. Haaland cannot pick up the ball in the middle of the park and just go past three players and smash it into the top corner, which is something Mbappe can and does do. So he's much more of a one-man sort of, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yep. I do. One of the questions, I feel like back in 2018, when he was coming on the world stage for the first time and they were winning a World Cup, I swear we were getting stories about what a great human being he is and how mature he is. Yep. And you wouldn't believe this kid is only 18 years old. And now 4 years later, he's like this petulant, egotistical Ronaldo 2.0, I'm assuming everything changed in 4 years, Lars.
Yeah, he's become a global superstar. And what I should say, having just, thrown a bit of shade on him for the things you hear, he is, by all accounts, unusually intelligent for one of these sort of sports stars. And I don't know if you recall, but recently there was a big story saying like he's changed his mind about staying at PSG. He wants to leave anyway. And he had almost like a list of demands of things that he wanted. The demands were all very reasonable. Like he thinks there are too many superstars at that club. He thinks him, Neymar, and Messi are too. Yeah, him and Neymar and Messi are too many. Needs to get rid of at least one for the team to function. He wants them to sign more young players. He wants them to utilize the fact that they're in Paris, which is the biggest talent hotbed on the planet, and they really focus in on getting the next Paris-born superstars. This is all good stuff. If I was the sporting director of Paris, this is what I'd be telling the owners. So I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying leaking that kind of stuff and suggesting that you're demanding a transfer a couple of months after signing a massive new contract with like €100 million sign-on bonus or something crazy like that is maybe not great behavior. And if you're the owner of a club or a president of the club, do you want that in your life? Like, do you not want a tall blonde Viking who just gets on with the job? I mean, some of those things seems easier to deal with than the other.
Yeah, and starting a club, you think long-term too, and I think Mbappe depends so much on speed, and that eventually goes away. And so, in that context, thinking long term,
but he is amazing, and we're gonna have a France chat and an Mbappe chat, not a Haaland chat now. And I would say, best player in the world right now. All of those things being said about his being quite strong-willed off the field. For interesting and fascinating reasons, he is unbelievably good.
And think of this stat came out today, Lars, and you probably saw it. At age 24, two players have had 7 World Cup goals at age 24: Pele and Mbappe.
It is quite remarkable, and if Erling Haaland is a Thor's hammer, this guy is like a laser in the way that he plays. I mean, they're both effective in very different ways. The goal that he scored to start off with the interplay with Hernandez was fantastic. His ability to cover that distance to get to the back post on that second one it was just insane, because he covers literally like 10 yards of ground in 1 second. And by the way, also times it perfectly for the cross.
He outran a punt or a huge clearance at one point. Did you guys see
that? Yes.
Yeah, he outran it. He had to slow down.
Yes. And there was one in the first half when Griezmann puts in a through ball, and I saw it, and I actually mentally switched off and looked at my monitor, because you see the through ball, and that's clearly too far. Like, no one's reaching that. But Mbappe just suddenly goes up a gear and just accelerates from what looks ready to be full speed, and just somehow accelerates from that again. And it's like again with Haaland, sometimes you see crosses be put in, and you switch off because you think he's not reaching that one, and then somehow he extends the leg. But no, he's so fast, and he has this thing, Mbappe. Very fast players, and this is a crass generalization, but what often happens with fast players is that they don't develop their game intelligence that well, because they spend their entire youth career just running away from everyone and just living on that speed. So what you don't see, I'm so glad you mentioned it, the timing. Like, Mbappe is so clever with his decision making and the timing and when to pass, and yeah, he's really remarkable in that sense.
Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves, me saying this, but it's a storyline that could develop. In the comparison, we've already started the comparison with Pele. He won the last World Cup, very young age.
Mm-hmm.
If he wins this one, 2 in a row, like Pele, and he'd be the last one to win 2 in a row. Pele was, basically the last star to win 2 in a row. He's setting himself up to instantly get to where Ronaldo and Messi are now, and kind of like.
Yes,
right.
And I feel like we've come a very weird distance from where we were just a matter of days ago. We were all convinced that France was about to replicate 1998.
Because we're idiots.
By the way, here's the other comment about the French game. Is it just me, or did Mr. Griezmann quietly have the man of the match performance?
Yeah.
And is just because Kylian scored 2 goals, we're not paying attention to just what an amazingly good game Mr. Griezmann had.
He did, and he's playing in a very interesting role now, because I've not really seen him play this deep before. I was looking at like a touch map of where he touched the ball throughout, and it was just all over the field, and he's traditionally played almost like a second striker, as a guy who plays ideally with Giroud for the national team, and starts out as a number 10, but is mostly focused on getting into the box and mostly focused on making runs and playing off Giroud and going in. But he's turning into a very, very different player who's getting involved all over the field. I think that's something France needs, the way they've set up now, because they're playing this sort of 4-3-2-1 with Mbappe one flank and Ousmane Dembele on the other flank. Neither of those guys defend much, right? So you definitely need your number 10 to do a lot of helping out in midfield for that system to work. And Griezmann is really taking that on.
He's rested.
Yes,
yes.
And secondly, with Pogba out of that midfield, I mean, dear listener, if you checked out our preview shows, I was really worried, like, who's creating in that midfield? Who's actually moving the ball forwards? Because Rabiot's got a great engine, but is not an amazing passer. Tchouaméni is a fantastic player, but more of a holder type of man. So who's actually progressing the ball forwards? Well, it turns out Griezmann is now dropping deep and playing a lot of smart forward passes, which isn't really something we've seen a lot from him before. So really fascinated by his role in this game.
We need to talk about Denmark.
Yes, because I'm starting to worry about my prediction.
Yes and no. And Lars, I don't know what you think, but look, France is really, really good, and Denmark was good.
Okay, but now put that with their first game.
Yeah, of course, but we know this, right? I mean, teams could crap out first game, and then now they just have to go and win against the Aussies,
right?
Which is not easy. But I don't think they're a decent team.
No, but Lars is right. What was the comment you made about Erling Haaland, which is what started me thinking about all this in our WhatsApp group today.
We've definitely mentioned Haaland too many times for someone who's not at the World Cup in this episode. But the current coach of Norway, Ståle Solbakken, who's also has a big connection to Denmark because he was in charge of FC Copenhagen, the big club in Denmark, for many, many years. So he often gets interviewed and stuff still, but in the Danish media. And he'd apparently spoken to the Danish coach, and he'd been saying as a joke, but I think he probably meant it, if you guys had Erling, you'd win the World Cup. And I think that's
a compliment, actually.
Yeah, but it's also, this team
True.
is really good, but they just don't have a forward. Like they and I think this was so clear against France. There were long passages of play when they were actually moving the ball really well. They were getting it into the flanks. They were putting really good crosses in. But there's just no one there. Cornelius, I'm sorry, but like at this level, it's not. I don't think he's good enough. Dolberg he has the talent, but he drifts in and out of games and hasn't played a lot and doesn't look sharp. And Martin Braithwaite is also a pretty limited guy. There were two crosses in particular in this game where Denmark just put in the perfect cross. Like, the delivery was perfect. Defense couldn't get near it, not close enough for the goalkeeper, in that sort of perfect area that if you have not even a great striker, just a pretty decent one, easy goal, and there's just no one there, and it's really, really frustrating as someone who,
I just feel as a
Nordic person who wants to see them do well.
Right,
the team is good, but there's just a black hole up front. Like, they're just not good enough, the guys they've got.
I feel there's a lot of teams like that.
Yeah,
it's true.
It is very true. And so France goes on and grabs a big win. France looks way better than I think any of us thought. At the same time, we've talked about for years that the depth of this team, which is really starting to reveal and show itself. And they're through. They're the first team to qualify for the round of 16.
I'd like to apologize to all those that took me up on the suggestion to go drop a $10 bill in Vegas to bet that France would not advance out of the group.
Are you
doing
paybacks?
Buy you a drink if you
you're not paying $10 back at a time for anybody with a ticket?
You see me out and about, I'll buy you a drink.
And I have to acknowledge that my sweet prince Olivier Giroud didn't have a great one. He wasn't at it in this game.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
he got pulled off early.
Yeah, but then again, that speaks to the depth of this team, is that they still got it done. And Ousmane Dembele looks very, very good, and he's such a gifted player. And much of that is just about the fact that his body has held together for quite a while now. He's always had a lot of injuries, but now he's had a long spell, both in the spring and in the fall, of being injury free. And here's a guy who's super fast, can dribble, and he's like genuinely 2-footed, so he can dribble each way. Like, as a fullback, when he's running out you really have no idea if he's going outside or inside. He's equally comfortable, and that's pretty terrifying. And he's just really, really good. So with him on one flank, Mbappe on the other, Griezmann doing things in this new number 10 role, and ideally my sweet handsome Prince Olivier Giroud playing better next time than he did here. This is a pretty scary team, you guys. This is pretty good.
So if Saudi Arabia beats Mexico, France will play Argentina in the round of 16, basically.
Well, the other game this morning, very, very early, bright and shiny, Australia beat Tunisia 1-0 in what, by all reports, was not a great match unto itself. Duke scored in the 23rd minute. There were not a ton of chances in this, but don't look now. Australia, the Aussies, are in second place with 3 points going into the last match. Tunisia is,
If they get a result against Denmark, does that put the Aussies through? It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yes, because if
unless Tunisia beats France, blah blah blah. Okay, so they're in good shape.
Yeah, that's that permutation thing that Lars doesn't think makes sense.
It's not that I think it's good. I think maybe we on this side of the ocean should speak more about it. I'm just kind of fascinated by how different the outs are.
No, we just like making fun of cultural differences.
Here is more like someone on Twitter will tell me during the game what the permutations are. It'll become
completely
apparent.
Trusting. Okay.
Yes. Look,
you follow people who know what they're doing.
As disappointing as Denmark has been, I do think they're still better than Australia, and I would be shocked. I think that would be a significant shock if they are unable to beat Australia and grab the second place in the table.
Sure, but this is where Andy just ate some humble pie about his France call. It's time for me to do the same. I think Australia is probably the team I was the most dismissive about. Though I was very clear that I always hoped I was wrong, because I really like them as a people and as a sporting nation. But this is a group that on paper is not strong at all. And getting a 3-pointer against Tunisia is tremendous. And there were incredible scenes in Melbourne in particular, because this was played, because the time zones are goofy, this was played late in the evening down in their time. And people were really having a party down there. And you know what? Like, Mitchell Duke, like the guy who scored, Mitchell Duke, again, we mentioned him before, plays in the Japanese second tier. Now, for me, the fact that he has as many World Cup goals as Robert Lewandowski, that's what this tournament is all about. It's the fact that you can have someone who isn't necessarily a global superstar, but who will do the best he can for his country, and will have a chance to shine, and he did.
It's so going in. So now France gets to play Tunisia. That is going to be a situation where I assume, since they're through, they're going to get to rest players.
Yeah, they do want to finish first, though, because, right?
Or do they? If
Or do they? You're right, exactly. That's
yeah,
exactly
if
what I
Argentina
was
ends
looking.
up in
yeah,
second
right.
place.
Yeah, right.
So hold on, let me look at this. Because,
So Argentina plays first or second? Who plays? Which group plays in the morning?
Yes. So for the D plays the early game. I guess that'd be 10 a.m. the game our time, and C plays the 1 p.m.
So
game.
they won't know what Argentina will have done.
No, in fact, it's the other way around.
Right.
Right. So, so France has to make a call here. But look, it's Tunisia, who have not been good, and I'm going to go back and revert to the thing that I knew to be true to begin with, which is France is a deep team, and they should be able to rest some key players and give them a break and still beat Tunisia, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Added cultural spice here. There are 10 players in the Tunisian squad who are born in France.
Wow. That's an interesting fact.
They're not all starting, obviously, but Wabi
Yeah.
Kazri, Naim Sliti, El Eskiri, I mean, these are some of their biggest guys in terms of, quality.
So Tunisia's
are born
going to
in
be
France.
amped for the game.
A little bit, I think it's fair to say. This is a big one for them.
Yeah. An upset. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to get into permutations.
Look what you've done to him, Lars.
No. But I also think they win because, again, if they rotate, I mean, France's second line is so strong, and those guys will be desperate to prove themselves and show that they can maybe earn a spot, maybe not in the team, but off the bench. So I think they should be fine. But I think just if you're watching that game, bear in mind, like this is personal for some of them.
Yeah.
It wasn't the best set of games today, and it wasn't the greatest display of the sport, but I'll repeat, today had three really critically great moments. Lewandowski crying because he scored his first World Cup goal, Messi rescuing Argentina, and Mbappe just doing
Mbappe best player in the world things.
Yeah,
being
just
a freak.
Being a freak. And those are the things that make this tournament so farting amazing.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better from here. Because don't forget, when the third round games start coming around, you're going to have to figure out a way to get two screens on at the same time, because the group stages are played at the same time.
And why is that, Peter?
Yes, because of the shame of Guillaume. Right. Yes, we learned that
not
earlier.
the disgrace of Dijon. That's a very
The disgrace of Dijon.
Yeah, that's when I didn't put the mustard properly in my sandwich.
Which is
That's
a story
something
about
else.
spoiled mustard. Right, exactly. Okay, let's take our second break and come back, and we'll do Andy's trivia question and take preview of what's going to happen on Match Day 7 next. Here we go with part 3 of Match Day 6 of Qatar KickAround. It was a good day of World Cup footballing. I should I should remind everybody. And tomorrow is interesting because we have groups E and F. But before we preview those games, let's get into everybody's favorite Qatar Kick-Around segment, Professor Andy's World Cup trivia question. Lars, look at the glee on Lars's face. He loves this.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you think you know the answer? Don't answer it yet. He has to re-ask the question first.
Yeah, I'll remember to let you guys guess first. And today's question, it is. I wanted to refer to some teams that we will be talking about today, but the question was, of the teams that I'm about to give you, which one has finished in the top 3 in World Cup history the most, and which one has finished in the top 3 the least among those 4 teams I'm going to give you. The most in history, Germany, Brazil, Italy, in that order, have finished top 3 the most times. But between A, Hungary, B, Sweden, C, England, and D, Poland, which of those nations has finished the most in the top 3?
Top 3
first, second, or third?
Of their group?
No. And finalists in the World Cup.
Yeah,
Oh.
so either in the final or won the runners-up final.
Hungary, Poland, England, and who?
They medaled, basically.
Yeah.
Hungary, Sweden, England, Poland.
Yeah. So either got to the final or lost in the semis but won the runners-up game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say the most is Sweden.
And Lars?
So this is the thing. Sometimes in life, you don't play the game, you play the player. And from our various discussions in the WhatsApp group over the last 48 hours, I have an inkling about who's the last
Lars is
in
buying
this
time.
particular. No. And I know. I think I know where Andy's going with the question, but yeah, I think Sweden's a good shout. I don't. Because they did get the bronze in '94. And I do have a sneaking suspicion that they were good back in the day, back when like the Serie A top scorer kept being from Sweden, and no one remembers anything.
Come on, Lars.
You're right, Lars. Yes, and
Yes,
that was a
there we
note
go.
to you and your Nordic blood and your brethren.
Thank you.
Sweden was good back in
All
the
right,
day.
so now
and
who
they
the least top 3
But
finishes?
I do want to finish. The other 2 finished twice in the top 4. Hungary, their golden generation in the 30s through the 50s, that was Puskás, famous. They were at the top of the heap in world football. But when that generation got old, they then made it to the quarters, and then they petered out. Poland.
Hey, I'm right here.
Poland had a golden generation in the 70s and 80s. Finished top 3 twice in 74 and 82, finished 5th in 78, and then just barely made the round of 16 and 86. The golden generation was old, and we're going to talk about Belgium. Belgium is right about where these guys were in 86 when they were already on the way
So
down.
England is the least top 3.
England is the least. The only
And I
time
knew
they
that.
finished top 3 was in 66 when they won it on home soil
And 2018 when they got to the semis
and lost.
and
So,
lost. Oh,
yeah.
top 3. Yeah, duh.
They
Okay,
were
yeah.
fourth. So only one time the inventors of the game have finished one time in top 3. Tier 2 level countries in soccer like Hungary, Sweden, and Poland, among many others, have finished in the top 3 more times.
Now, where I would squabble with this is that they've finished. I mean, they've gotten to semifinals though. They've gotten to 2 semis. They've
Okay.
just not won the dumb runners-up game that no one
All right.
cares about.
So, Lars, they've gotten to 2 semis.
The dumb runners-up medal.
Well,
So
they've
they
won
t-
one and gotten to 2 semis. But no, I take your point. I take your point.
Thank you, Professor Andy. I love the trivia question. Okay.
Oh, can I interject very quickly?
Yes, of
Sure, of course. Yes, please do.
Since you mentioned Hungary, listeners who are a little bit fresh
dinner
to the
time,
soccer
by the
thing
way.
might not. Okay, this is your way of telling me to hurry up. If you're interested, if you're a little bit new to soccer now, you're getting into this tournament, and you're a little bit interested in history, I do recommend an acquaintance and colleague, Jonathan Wilson's book on Hungarian football from their great period. It's called Names Heard Long Ago, because Hungary, not only did they have a golden age, but the way they played football actually did a lot to shape the direction of how football was played.
Yep.
So that is a much more interesting book and a much more interesting part of history than you'd think.
It's
So
an
if you
important
pick-
part of soccer history. Yes, for sure.
I
Yes.
wonder if
some incredible
that,
characters as well from that time.
I wonder if that book will make a Easter egg appearance in season 3 of Ted Lasso.
That would be very clever because it's proper soccer geekery. That
Sure.
because
For those not aware, one of Jonathan's other books, his most famous book, is being read by Coach Beard on the plane.
Yeah.
It makes a couple of appearances, Inverting the Pyramid. Okay, tomorrow, Matchday 7. Really, this is such an amazing turn of events because it's the game that I think most everybody had circled and was most excited about over the course of this tournament, long beforehand when the draw was done, whenever it was. And by the way, I looked that up. Am I wrong? Was the draw done in October?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Was it only in October?
Yeah, yes.
April
I
1st,
think
2022. Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought I read so. Okay. Anyway, that's it. I don't know why. I digress.
Andy knows this.
It's Spain and Germany, right? We all were super excited. There's no group of death, but this may be the deathiest of any of the groups. But this was the game we were all super excited about. But now we come into this game with the possibility that Spain may knock Germany out of the group stage for the second tournament in a row. And I don't think any of us had that on our bingo card coming into this game. Now, it's the 1 o'clock game tomorrow. And man, it just is ripe with its own story. I mean, it's kind of like Argentina-Mexico today on steroids. Somebody.
No.
Well, I was looking. Spain didn't knock Germany out of the tournament last.
No. I just mean knocking Germany out of the tournament.
I got you.
Yeah,
Don't get too
Okay.
just
Yes.
Andy's such a.
Well, I was like, we got to correct that because I don't think that's right. Okay.
I'm not saying
There'll
they
be
knocked
letters.
him out.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying
gotcha.
knocking
Letters.
Germany.
Yes. Look, if Germany goes out at the group stage 2 World Cups in a row, that crisis in Germany, right?
Yes.
Lars. I mean,
What is a bigger crisis? Hold on. This is a really good, interesting question that just popped in my head. What is a bigger crisis? Germany getting knocked out of the group stage in 2 straight World Cups, or Italy not making 2 straight
Italy not
World
making
Cups?
2 straight World Cups.
It is for the Italians. It's a bigger humiliation. But the thing that makes it interesting from Germany is that they've, for the last sort of 2 decades-ish, people have kind of looked at them as the team and a nation that's doing things right in terms of developing players, in terms of developing their clubs. And maybe they're not. I mean, this is one of those things that...
Yeah.
There's another great football book, actually, called Das Reboot, written by Rafa Honigstein, who's another fantastic football writer, about how Germany, after about 2000, just looked at it and say, we're not developing players properly. Our clubs are lagging behind in Europe. Then the national team is a disgrace. We're not good enough. And then they just changed how they developed. They changed the whole system of the FA and the coaching, all of it. And then that culminated, of course, in them winning the World Cup in 2014, right? And since then, people have kind of looked to Germany as like, yeah, they do it right, and they develop all these very talented players, and the clubs are all very functional, and it's all very good. That's not always been completely true, but there's been a sense that they've got it right. Now, if they go home early from 2 consecutive World Cups, you're gonna have to think, are we though? and they've definitely had a huge problem with that throughout this period, where their clubs play really exciting football, and they have some really good players. Like, they haven't brought forth one striker. Like, this massive country with a huge football interest and a huge football heritage can't seem to produce a striker from anywhere. That's kind of weird. Like, we're still talking about Miroslav Klose as the guy. They haven't had a single center forward. There's also a sense that these academies, they're producing a lot of really talented and technical and clever players, but are they producing the guys with the killer instinct? Are they producing the sort of brutal defenders that'll break your legs rather than let you go past them? Are they producing the sneaky strikers who always are in the right spot? They're producing a lot of good students, a lot of tidy boys, but are they actually getting the right types that you need to have an international team that really works?
I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Because if they do end up winning that game,
The Germans, right?
They get Costa Rica last,
right, and that's what makes this whole set of scenarios so fascinating. Because Japan gets Costa Rica, we're just going to work under the assumption Japan qualifies by winning that game, right? Because if they win, aren't they in?
No, you can have 3 teams tied for 6.
Oh, that's right.
This is why permutation analysis matters.
Gosh, Lars, you've got me so anti-permutations or frightened of the judgment of such things.
Be yourself.
Okay.
Don't worry about judgment. Come on.
Yes, because that's what's so fascinating. Japan could win against Costa Rica. Germany could beat Spain, and then Spain turns around and gets Costa Rica and then beats them. Well, then it would become a difference between how Japan and
I really don't. I really don't think there's any version of this where Spain play Costa Rica next.
No, Spain would play Japan, and
Right.
Spain would beat Japan, and Germany plays Costa Rica, and they
That's
all
what I
end
mean,
up
sorry.
with 6, and it goes to goal difference where Spain has the advantage right now.
that's the part of this you can make fun of, Lars, is when I get things wrong.
Yes, that's when permutations go really out of whack.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Yeah. Now, if Germany, like Japan, if they beat Costa Rica, right?
Yes.
And they're watching the Germany game play later, and Germany doesn't get a win, they'll know they've gone through.
Right. But if Germany loses tomorrow, they're out. Period. The end.
Well, it depends what Japan, because if Costa Rica beats Japan, no.
Okay, I guess I'm working under the assumption that Japan's going to beat Costa Rica.
Okay. Well, you're asking me. I have to answer factually.
No, that's part of the permutation game
Okay.
and culture is that we work under,
Yes.
we don't just...
No,
Yes.
anything can happen
Anything
on
can
any
happen.
given Sunday.
Yes. Saudi Arabia beat Argentina.
Right, exactly, and it's World Cup.
Yes, Japan beat Germany. So yes, this has these kind of things
The
can
Brian
happen.
Ruiz hat trick is incoming.
Now,
We've watched a lot of Costa Rica in the last year. Lars, I'm fairly certain that's not happening. but
Lars,
okay.
you really did give us. Well, I don't know. Are we going to talk the Japan game next?
Yeah,
Costa
so
Rica?
Japan plays Costa Rica
Yeah.
in the early game.
Lars did give us a huge heads up on this Japan team. You were really high on them, and then they ended up beating Germany.
I can't fully take credit for it because I were high on them, but I didn't think they'd actually get out of the group. I was
No,
like,
of course, it's a
these
tough
guys
group.
these guys are great. These guys are really good. If they were any other group, I'd have them as a dark horse, but I don't think they can actually beat Germany and Spain. So I was high, but not high enough. Really, really impressive because just look at the players and the teams they play for, and it's not just that they put in a lot of effort and stuff, but they're genuinely classy, technically accomplished, good footballers across the board here. And I think their coach deserves a lot of praise for the way he turned the game against Germany by making a in-game formation switch that really bamboozled the Germans. So intrigued by this, and I'd love to see them go through from this group. That'd be fantastic.
Weird question. If somehow Germany beats Spain, all right, and then so Spain still only has 3 points, and Japan plays Spain on the last day. If Japan beats Spain and Spain gets knocked out of the group, would they be the team that had scored the most goals in the first game of a group stage not to get out of it?
Yeah, that would be a fun stat. I would enjoy that.
Well, 7, yes, because it's 7. Because Russia scored 6 on Cameroon in '94 and didn't advance out of group.
Crazy.
This is incredible not to have at your fingertips, Andy.
Is that crazy or what?
I'm very,
It's all
very
here.
impressed.
It's not at the fingertips.
It's like the
right
coolest
there.
seal and walrus trick at the circus. It's just like throwing things at Andy and watching him spit out World Cup facts. It's pretty fantastic. All right, Belgium and Monaco is the 7:00 game because we now move into Group F, which I think
Belgium and Monaco.
I mean Morocco.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was going to see
not
if someone
Monaco.
was going to let
No.
go with that.
Yes.
The Monegasque national team, I think, would be pretty
That
bad.
would explode the permutations in my head. I could not figure that one out.
I'm clearly melting
They're
right
all
in front of everybody.
fabulously
right here.
wealthy, but not very good at soccer.
We are. Can you
None
tell
of them pay
we're?
tax.
Can you tell we're like on day 6 of the
Yes.
4 a.m. game?
Constantly in the casino.
Tuesday can't come fast enough.
Belgium and Morocco, and then Croatia and Canada. I actually think the Croatia-Canada game is going to be a blast to watch.
Yeah, I'll be
I
at
really
the
do.
park walking my dog.
You're not going to watch it?
Yes,
you have
of course I'll watch it.
Do you have a shirt with a stain on it you're having to choose to wear? No, you probably don't.
I'm going to bring out the Swiss flag.
Why the
I'll be
Swiss?
Switzerland.
Oh,
It's a joke.
that's right, because that's right. Okay,
yeah.
so Lars,
Now
again,
you
this
understand.
is yeah, Lars. He's having an internal battle because Andy was born in Canada.
Canadian. Dad's side Canada, mom's side Chile, but my grandfather
Is from Croatia.
Is from Croatia.
So he has ties to both. He has allegiances to both Canada and Croatia. So it's a house divided thing, Lars.
Yeah.
That's what he's got to do.
That's why I'll be at the park walking the dog. No, I'm kidding.
forgot.
I think it'll be a fascinating game. I'm really disappointed with how Croatia played their first match. I mean, very passive against an inferior opponent.
Yeah.
I don't understand what happened that game because they were one of the few teams actually looking good heading into the World Cup.
Yes.
Croatia was.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't get it. I don't understand.
Okay, so just to save some time, I'm assuming we're both going to predict Japan's going to beat Costa Rica and Belgium's going to beat Morocco/Monaco. Okay, but how do we feel, Andy? I'm going to make you predict your house divide. What, Lars?
I mean, Belgium.
I'm with Lars. I don't know if that's just a
them.
slam dunk win.
No, I don't think it is. I thought they were alarmingly poor against Canada. I thought they were alarmingly bad against Canada.
De Bruyne even said they're too old.
Okay.
Yeah, and
that's such a weird thing.
I can see a draw there, right, Lars?
Yeah, and I think part of why that Morocco-Croatia game was so bad is I think Morocco were pretty well organized and they were up for it and they made it kind of difficult for them. I think it's entirely possible that Belgium messed that up.
I'm with Lars on this one.
Okay.
We're ganging up on you, Pete. All right.
Fair enough. Okay. So, Andy, I'm going to ask you to make a prediction in your house-divided Croatian-Canada game.
1-1.
That's what I figured. Lars, you going to make one?
No, I worry that the sort of the canniness and the cynicism of the Croatians will undo the excitable and hard-running and
the pleasant and kindness of the Canadians.
2-1?
Incredibly
2-1 or
likable
1-0?
Canadians. Yeah, 2-1 sounds about right to me.
2-1. Yeah, I can see that. 2-1 Croatia.
All right, I'm going to go with a Canadian upset.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm just going to call.
What about Modric? Don't you like Modric?
I love Modric, but they're all 1,000 years old, and I just have a feeling between Buchanan and Davies, they're going to.
Are they? Serious question for you guys related to that. Did Canada just leave it all on the field against Belgium? I mean, that was a taxing performance.
Yeah.
And they don't have depth.
That's true.
A lot of depth. So
true.
That might factor.
All right.
I really hope I'm wrong and Pete's right. Let me just put that on the table.
All right.
Spain, Germany.
What you think will happen and what you hope will happen are almost never the same thing.
Of course.
I really thought we were going to get this episode in under an hour, but clearly
You're
we're not.
You're a fool, Peter. You're a fool.
I'm a total idiot.
Have we met?
Spain, Germany, Lars. Make your prediction now. Say it, Lars. Now, don't sit there with your head in your hands and just ponder it. You have an opinion. What is it? Say it.
2-2.
Cripes. Okay. Andy?
Draw. 1-1 because it's a low-scoring World Cup, but I do like the 2-2 Lars just put out.
I just think the result against Los Ticos was great, but the Spanish defense, I think, is pretty bad, and they just didn't have to do anything, so we haven't seen that in action.
But then you have the Germans can't score. Yeah, all right.
All right, I'm going to be ridiculous, and I'm going to say this is like the craziest game of the tournament so far, and Germany's going to win 4-3.
I like it.
Like it.
I'm fully behind you on this potentially being a crazy game.
I love it.
All right.
Okay, that is the 1 p.m. game tomorrow. Lars, how is Richmond on the Bay tonight?
Pretty good. I mean, I'd expect more people out and about on a Saturday night.
It's very quiet in downtown Richmond. Maybe they're all. Hey, by the way, did you guys know that during the World Cup, one of the ESPN channels this morning was showing the Wrexham game?
Were they?
Yes.
It's very confusing.
It's the power of Hollywood. I don't know what
went on here. I don't think that was on here.
Was there okay, maybe it was a rerun because I was having a hard time believing that they were playing games in the National League.
No, there was a cup thing today.
A replay? Was it the replay?
No, it was the second round of the FA Cup, so it's early enough.
Or FA Trophy.
Was it the FA Trophy? No, it's the FA Cup. It's just early. It's just early enough that the big teams haven't been dumped into it yet.
English
so
FA Cup,
so Wrexham played Farnborough,
and they beat them 4-1.
It is so crazy that those two Hollywood guys have gotten Wrexham on broadcast on television here.
Guys, the attendance at that game. Lars, do you know? Do you see it?
5 and a dog.
19,000.
At the race course.
At the race course ground.
That's incredible.
I take it back. I apologize. That's pretty crazy.
That is insane. That's like MLS levels of attendance.
They've exceeded MLS.
By the way, before all of this is over, we're going to have a conversation about how MLS is coming of age in this World Cup, by the way. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the numbers of appearances and the percentage of time being played by players that play in MLS, and the very slow turn of opinion that MLS seems to be undergoing at this particular moment in time. We'll talk about that.
Until CONCACAF bows out.
Yeah, all right, Lars, again, thank you very much. It's always great to speak with you. We will have more of this conversation with you tomorrow, sir. Get a nap.
I just need to double. Is it 19,000? Are we sure that's not a typo?
Well, that's what it says on ESPN. So if it's a typo, then it's a typo. I'm just stating what the thing
Tune
says.
in tomorrow for the next episode.
Can you find out?
I wish someone will have figured this out.
Can you find out?
Lars, we need you to find out, because it turns out that Andy's great story about the England-USA 1-0 score being printed as 10-0 turned out not to be true. So we need to fact-check him.
Yeah, ESPN, 19,118.
Because there's no way the race course has a 19,000 capacity.
Well, maybe they opened that. Maybe they fixed that.
No. So what I think here, I think someone's added a 1 here. So let me go to this.
So it's 9,000?
I think that's what it is.
Or maybe it's 19.166.
Yeah.
Like one of those, like the guy that was in the opening thing that was only half a body showed up.
By the way,
so the local paper reports 9,118. So someone's added
ESPN
a 1.
got it wrong.
But you know what? That is still a crazy attendance for the second round in the cup. So let me just say that to people listening. The point
it's
about
kind of like a full stadium, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
and yes, it close. And just really, again, your point about how they've attracted a lot of attention to this club totally stands. That's a very unusual attendance for that level.
I just don't think most Americans understand what low level of the sport Wrexham plays in. And I've tried to make the comparison, and people just don't believe me. And they're like, but I see them on TV and on FX and ESPN. They can't be that bad. I'm like, okay, whatever. It is fun to watch. Again, all right, I'm going to dismount try number 3. Lars, thank you very much. It is awesome to speak with you. Andy, good stuff. Good day. Thank you for watching the live stream. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow for Match Day 7. Get stuck in, win your 50s.